What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection video for Game Week 1. If you are new to the channel, this is a series that I do throughout the season, so once a week for 38 game weeks, talking about my team, possible moves, thoughts on players, transfers, captaincy, and all that good stuff. So if you do want to see more throughout the season, make sure you hit that like button, and of course subscribe as well. We're very close to 300,000 subscribers. I would love to get it before the Game Week 1 deadline. It doesn't cost anything to hit that button. So if you've been enjoying the content in pre-season and you want to see it throughout the 2022-23 season as well, make sure you hit subscribe. Before we get into the video, let's talk about Ultimate Fan. Very happy to say that Ultimate Fan are sponsoring today's video. This is a completely free to game that is fantasy football meets pack openings with cash prizes up for grabs. I had a lot of fun playing it last season and it's back with new features for the 2022-23 season. And whether you're a new player or a returning player, you're going to want to check it out by clicking that link in the description below. There's £2,500 up for grabs in week 1. You just need to get your team set. When you load into the game, you'll get a completely free starter pack as well as 250 Ultimate Fan coins to spend as you wish. You can use this on packs or you can go into the brand new marketplace where you can buy and sell players. I've already ventured into the market to pick up some new cards for my squad. Now's a great time to get involved before things get a bit busier and potentially prices go up. But also by downloading now, you'll start getting your free cards for logging in daily, and you can start referring your friends where both of you will get extra cards to help improve that squad. If you want to use my code, it's UR869. The more cards you got, the better your squad, the more chance of winning those cash prizes. And if that wasn't enough, I've also set up a Let's Talk FPL League. If you want to get involved, the code is QA4453. The person who wins every single week for the first 5 weeks will get 1,000 Ultimate Fan coins added to their account. So there's no better time to get involved. Link in the description below to get it downloaded. Start building your squad. Start trying to win those cash prizes. You just need to be 18 or over from the UK or from Ireland. Good luck. Okay, so let's start off with the defenders and goalkeepers first of all. As I go through my team, I'm going to talk about the players that are unlikely to change before the Game Week 1 deadline, and also those that I'm not 100% sure about. Obviously, we still got a few days to go before Friday. We might get new information. My thought process might change, but I'll talk about who those players are and who I'm thinking about going for instead as we go through the team. So I'll actually start off with the goalkeeper on the bench. I'm pretty much going to go for Ward at Leicester for £4 million. There was quotes coming out yesterday that he could be the new #1 keeper if Schmeichel leaves, which looks likely. Again, that might have happened by the time you watch this video. It's not 100% sure that Ward will be the #1, but I was always going to have a £4 million keeper on my bench anyway, so he's pretty much a risk-free pick. There's no other, as far as we know, £4 million playing goalkeepers who are going to be #1. So I go for Ward. If he does get that shirt, great. If Ramsdale has a really tough fixture or gets injured, then I can play Ward instead. And if he doesn't, I was going to have that £4 million spot on my bench anyway. I'm very unlikely to want 3 Leicester players, so he's not going to stop me from doing anything else that I want to. My main goalkeeper right now is Ramsdale. I could probably talk about goalkeepers for a long time. I'm unsure on this position, right? And I've never been this unsure about a goalkeeper pick in 10 plus years of playing FPL. I had Ederson in my last draft. The reason I've dropped him is not necessarily because of his price, because for 5.5 million, I do think he's probably the best option, but I don't necessarily want to lock myself out of getting a third Man City outfield pick. And because I don't know when I'm going to wildcard between, it could be like between game weeks 4 to 10. If it was towards the latter stages, like game week 8, 9, 10, do I want to go that long without being able to get a third outfield Man City player in my team? I don't think I do. So I've gone for Ramsdale instead. I do have similar concerns with Arsenal though, right? I've got 2 outfield Arsenal players. Do I want to stop myself getting in a third? That might make me change Ramsdale, but right now he's in there. And when I look at goalkeepers, I look at their defender options in the same team. So Mendy, for example, if I only wanted one Chelsea defensive option, I much prefer Reece James for £1 million more than Mendy. Whereas with Ramsdale, the competition is like Gabriel and Zinchenko for the same price. And I'm not 100% sure about Zinchenko's minutes, and neither of them are going to be as attacking as someone like Reece James or Cancelo or Trent, and therefore I think if I'm going to back all these defences, the goalkeeper I prefer from all 5 of these teams is just to get Ramsdale in. So that's why he's in now. It could change. If Ward is definitely the #1, then he and Sanchez from Brighton rotate very nicely from a fixture perspective. You could also save 0.5 million by doing that. But right now I've got Ramsdale. Trent doesn't need much explaining at all. He's definitely going to be in my side barring injury for a lot of the season, maybe all of it, who knows. But 7.5 million is just too cheap for him. He is the best defender in the game, the most attacking, plays for Liverpool, loads of clean sheets, all that good stuff you've heard a million times. He's definitely in. I've gone for Cancelo over Robertson because I've got a second outfield pick from Liverpool right now. So I can't actually get Robertson into my side. And sometimes it is that kind of domino effect, that combination effect, that once you choose one player, it makes you pick a different one elsewhere. And that's fine, right? I'm happy with that. I think Cancelo playing for the best defence in the league, fairly attacking as well, probably decent for bonus points. I expect him to be pretty nailed on. They haven't signed a new fullback yet either. So yeah, he's definitely in. Reece James I've just spoken about. I think some people have got doubts about Chelsea in general and also whether or not James will play right centre-back. But for me, £6 million is too cheap a price to risk that he's like not going to play right wing back. If he starts the season playing right wing back regularly, he's up for a lot of points, right? Chelsea have got really good fixtures. From an attacking point of view, his underlying numbers, expected goals and expected assists, are right up there. And I do not want to risk going without him. He plays in that position and then suddenly I'm scrambling to get him in. I think there's so many defenders to choose from that if it becomes an issue early on where he's playing right centre-back for whatever reason, then I can just switch him to someone else. You've got Diaz for 6 million at City. You've got Chilwell if he's fit. You've got Cucurella if he comes in at Chelsea as well. You've got Doherty if he's starting as well alongside Perisic. Trippier if I want to go down to 5 million. There's loads of options I could possibly go with. I can't actually go for Diaz because of the rest of my Man City players, but there's a lot of defender options. That's the point. And I think if Reece James is playing wing back, he's going to be brilliant. So he's definitely in. And Perisic, I think part of the skill with FPL is kind of deciphering what managers are saying. And from what the quotes I read out yesterday were from Conte, some people think that that means Perisic is an issue because he's not fit. I read it as he's not at the level Conte wants him at, but he's still fit enough to start. And I think he is going to start. And I think 5.5 million is a brilliant price point for him. He's going to get forward. He's going to get into very attacking positions. And I think right here I've got either, they're not all wing backs, but they all play as if they're wing backs. They're all very high up the pitch. And there's loads of potential from all of these teams for clean sheets and attacking returns. And I think if you think Perisic and Doherty are going to start, they are excellent value. There are some doubts there, right? I'm not completely sure about it, but I'm sure enough to have him in my team with Nico Williams on the bench because he's the cheapest defender who's likely to play regularly. So bringing in the midfield, we've got Salah, Diaz, Martinelli and Neto. A lot of these players have not changed over my last few drafts, so I think most of them will see it all the way through to game week 1. The one who's least likely to make it is probably Diaz, and I'll come on to him in just a minute. Salah's definitely going to be in. He's definitely going to be my captain for Fulham away. I think the likes of Kane and Son are brilliant options in game week 1 against Southampton at home. I really do think the Spurs will put quite a few goals past them, but nothing much beats Salah playing against newly promoted side, and the fact that he just went and got 2 returns against Man City in the Community Shield just makes me want to captain him even more. And I still see conversations going around in the community like, are you just picking him because you're scared? I'm like, yeah, I'm scared I'm going to miss out on a load of points because he's absolutely brilliant. So he's definitely going to be in. Martinelli, when it comes to £6 million midfielders and below, I think he is the best option. Like if you had a choice between him and Neto, Martinelli probably is the one to go for. In terms of minutes, I think he is going to start fairly regularly for maybe the first 3 to 5 game weeks. I think on that left-hand side, his main competition is Smith Rowe, who's not had as many minutes in pre-season. And like I've said quite a few times already about Arsenal, that side is fairly settled. So Martinelli is going to start the season as the first choice kind of left forward, left winger. And also the other one is kind of Nketiah, who has played in that position in pre-season. But I think realistically, he is mostly just going to be a backup for Gabriel Jesus. So Martinelli is in, and Neto is still probably my favourite £5.5 million pick. I don't necessarily want to go near Everton. I'm just not trusting them to do well this season. Aaronson at Leeds, he could do well. Got 3 assists in the last pre-season game. But I think I've got to stick with Neto, at least for the first 6 game weeks where Wolves fixtures are pretty good. And if a different 5.5 million option emerges, I can always make a transfer, because one of the things with this team, the likes of the goalkeeper, the defenders and Salah, they're not necessarily picks that I need to worry about too much. And realistically, if Jota's out, and Martinelli keeps his place, I don't have too many risks either. I think last season I started with 2 Man City midfielders that very early on I needed to get rid of, and I feel like in this team, and it could be famous last words, there's less risk that I'm going to have to spend transfers on. You could look at this team and say that Diaz, Martinelli, Neto himself, and even Perisic are slight risks, but I don't think they're that bad, so I'm happy enough to go with kind of Martinelli and with Neto as well. With Diaz, I quite like the idea of having an £8 million midfielder spot. I know what people are saying, prices might change, and as soon as that happens, you can't do a straight swap. But having someone close to that price makes it a little bit easier, right? So Reece James down to a Doherty, Perisic to a Doherty, any of the defenders down to like a 4.5, Ramsdale down to a 4.5 goalkeeper. There's ways to get a little bit more money if I need it to do Diaz to a different £8 million midfielder that does go up in price. And I think I want to kind of leave myself in a position where I am fairly flexible with that, because there are a lot of options in that £8 million bracket, and I don't know who's going to be the necessary best option. I think starting with 3 Liverpool players is always good, especially when they got Fulham away, and with Jota out, I do like Diaz. There's part of me that wants to switch to Saka, but that has a knock-on effect where I then have to get rid of Ramsdale to someone different, and I don't know if I want triple Arsenal attack. The fact that Saka might be on penalties, and again, that's not 100% sure. I agree with most people that he's probably the most likely, but it's not guaranteed. Whether you're an Arsenal fan or not, no one knows for sure until he or Arteta comes out and says it, that he is the number 1 taker. But if he was, that makes him pretty desirable. And I do think in isolation, he probably is the best £8 million midfielder. But again, it's just that knock-on effect. If I go for him instead of Diaz, I'd then be trying to work out how to get Robertson in this team, and I'd need to swap Ramsdale as well. So while Jota's out, I think Diaz's minutes are pretty good. I'm probably going to start with him. But he is someone that could change, even possibly to a 5 at the back formation by ditching Diaz and going to Robertson. So adding in the forwards, I think Gabriel Jesus at this point is basically a lock in my team. I'd be very surprised if he's not in my squad by the time we get to the Game Week 1 deadline on Friday. I love that he's had so many pre-season minutes in a new club, because sometimes signings come in late. They don't necessarily get so much time to gel. Jesus has played a lot. He's scored a lot. He should be nailed on. He's got great underlying stats from Man City, but now he's going to get a chance to kind of prove that week in, week out that he can deliver. So he's in my team. I think you could make a case, like I've already talked about with Saka, if Saka is the main penalty taker, and I don't think it's going to be Jesus because his record isn't great, you could go 4-5-1 and have Saka instead of Jesus, but you're making a big bet against the rest of the FPL managers. Like I said, his ownership's over 70%, so you'd have to be absolutely sure that Saka was the better option. And also, I think I prefer the Jesus and Andreas Pereira combination rather than Saka and another 4.5 million forward that's probably not going to play that regularly. I've put Archer in from Aston Villa because Aston Villa fans seem to really rate him and think that he could get some minutes, probably from the bench more often than not. But with 5 subs, that is possible now, more so than it would have been last season. So that's why he's in. But I don't necessarily want another 4.5 million forward. So I prefer having Andreas Pereira, who I think is probably the best option for the bench if you've got 4.5 to spend. And that is why Jesus will almost certainly stay rather than switching to Saka or Mount or someone else in midfield instead. With Haaland, I have gone back and forth on him and Kane. I started with Kane, then I went to Haaland, then I went back to Kane. And interestingly, I switched back to Haaland after the Community Shield because I think he did pretty well in that game, even though he didn't score. And I think it's just that Chelsea fixture for Kane in Game Week 2 versus Haaland against Bournemouth at home that is making me go with Haaland. Yes, West Ham away is not as easy as Southampton at home, and I could start with Kane and then make a transfer. But if Haaland does well Game Week 1, his price will go up pretty quick, and I don't necessarily want to be forced into that early transfer with no money in the bank. So I think I prefer just to start with Haaland. I don't think booking in transfers is necessarily a bad strategy, but with this team, unless I get an injury, it could absolutely just be used in Game Week 2 without any transfers. That then lets me go into Game Week 3 with 2 free transfers to use as I wish. And it might be a thing where I go from Haaland to Kane a little bit later on, but ultimately Salah's such a good captain, I don't think I necessarily need to worry about rotating that other premium spot too much. Like arguably I could go Salah Game Week 1 captain and Game Week 2 against Palace, and then even in game week 3 against Man United, then game week 4 against Bournemouth, like you could permanently captain Salah. He's just that good. But I think in terms of structure, I quite like the 4-4-2 because you get those nice cheap bench options in Nico Williams and Andreas Pereira, who should get regular minutes. You've also got that £8 million midfield spot if you need to swap that around, and you've got the premium forward in Haaland. If you need to switch to Kane, then that's an option as well. So overall flexibility, I really like the 4-4-2. This is what I'm on. I'm not saying it's completely nailed or locked in, but I don't think too many of these players are going to change before game week 1. But I did just want to talk about one more draft. So this is a slight variation on the draft that I've just shown you with a 5 at the back formation. Essentially, it's Diaz and Nico Williams to Robertson and Leon Bailey instead. Now, it does give me a slight benching headache in game week 1. I would definitely want to play all those defenders, so I'd have to choose to bench one of Leon Bailey against Bournemouth, which I don't really want to do, Neto against Leeds, which I don't really want to do either, or Martinelli against Palace. Now, arguably, Martinelli's got the hardest fixture, but he's probably also the better option out of all of them as well. So it is a tricky bench decision, but it could help me in future weeks. So for example, in game week 2, Perisic plays Chelsea, and if you've got him, you probably wouldn't go out of your way to bench him, but I could play Neto against Fulham and Leon Bailey against Everton instead, and kind of switch back to more of a 4-4-2 formation just for that week. When Neto plays Spurs in game week 3, I could play Leon Bailey against Palace instead, and obviously I would just keep playing Martinelli throughout. So yes, it's a slight benching headache, but it also does give me a pretty decent bench, and I don't think too many people would argue that Robertson could keep up with Diaz instead. So yes, there's an issue because you could see it as less flexible. It doesn't have that £8 million midfield spot. But again, Robertson down to a 4.5 and Neto up to an 8. Robertson down to Nico Williams and just reversing the moves I've made from the last draft, and Leon Bailey up to an £8 million midfielder does work. So within 2 moves, I can move back to the other structure. So I don't think it's that big of an issue. And I kind of... like, one of the reasons we don't go 5 at the back usually, or haven't done in past seasons, is one, partly because the defenders haven't been as good as they are right now, but also because the cheap forwards and cheap midfielders are not as good as the cheap defenders. But if Bailey can keep his place, and if Neto does well, they're okay. And there are some other options you could move to. Granted, there's not a huge amount of quality in the 5 million bracket. There are a few 5.5 million options. But if it does work out, those cheap players will skyrocket in price pretty quickly. So you'll be making money on those players. And also you've got some rotation there as you need it, right? Some people absolutely hate benching headaches, and it's not fun to have to decide, but it does make you a little bit more flexible in that if someone gets injured, you're not necessarily forced into a transfer straight away. So right now I'm on that 4-4-2 because of Diaz in that 8 million spot. I've got the premium forward, happy days. But I do like the look of this. And I think Robertson versus Diaz is close. And I don't think this draft completely locks you out of getting one of those £8 million midfielders if you want to. Obviously, it's better to be able to do it in one move. But if prices change, you might have to make the 2 moves anyway. So this draft isn't a million miles away. So yeah, I could be tempted to switch to 5 at the back. There's that many good defenders. Let me know down below which one you prefer, the 4-4-2 or the 5-3-2. So there we go. That is the first team selection video of the season complete. There'll be another 37 of these to make sure that we cover all 38 game weeks throughout the season. So if you don't want to miss out on this series and all the other videos that I've got planned, please do hit that subscribe button. Help me hit 300k before the start of the season. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like as well. Don't forget to check out Ultimate Fan. Link in the description below. Get signed up to the league. Try and win those coins every single week to improve your squad. Otherwise, I'll leave it there and I'll catch you again soon for another video.